works, I know why that is. It's because there's a little metadata for your username, which tracks the last time you got points for saying here. And so there's like a little bit of extra information stored down there. Okay, we're back live on YouTube. Awesome. Smap, thank you so much for the heads up there. I appreciate that. Okay. What the heck are we doing? Who am I? Where am I? We are working on our tactics game figure renderer. Smab, I think you're lurking. You were saying you would use a grid over here. It's an interesting thing. If we do that, we can use the positions as well. And then we position there. The question just becomes like, how do I set the positions of these things? I don't think that actually matters that much. And then I can use a figure renderer. Or, yeah, that's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea to put those guys over there. That way, and then I can just use a figure renderer again. Kind of like that. But it won't have a board. Or it will. Maybe it's the same board. This thing doesn't have a board. There's some thoughts to put in here. Some thought. Yeah. Because they're not positioned on the board. I'm gonna ponder about that at some point. What is causing this space up here? Let's dock you to the right. This space up here is coming from the H2. Yeah, it's the margin on that I don't want. Let's turn the margin off our H2 here. Okay. I want to be able to click and drag these. So when I click, it's an interesting thing. When I click and drag, I need to, is there a way to disable like, anyway. I can do that. I want to be able to do this. It will set the figure that's being dragged with no offset. So we're gonna do what I consider a not great piece of code. Because we're gonna be duplicating stuff, and I want to figure out how to deduplicate that code. I want some of these behaviors. Specifically, this drag the mouse down. These behaviors I want. Okay. So for now, I'm going to duplicate some of this, and then I want to figure out how to separate these into two different things so I don't have the code duplication. So I'm just going to start here to understand my problem a little bit more. I need to put in a private bool mouse down. We're going to add in this check drag start as well. The Lumen! Welcome back, you're so luminous. Welcome back to the stream. Congratulations on your code refactor, Fuel. You guys are the people here who do all this incredible, like, micro code stuff. Just blows my mind. I couldn't do it. Cold golfing causes me pain. All right, so let's inject our, so our offset here, we won't have an offset. We need a reference to our board. So that's interesting. That's like the board being edited. Can we make this be cascaded down? Board editor. All right, so this is it. I think we might make this a cascading value. We could also pass it into our figure panel. It's another option. I think making it cascade is probably the correct thing to do. We're going to need to inject our tool manager. Inject tool manager, tool manager. You're trying to deploy a Django app on EC2 and you're crying. So you've started up your own like container. So you started up like an instance specifically, and then you're having trouble like SSHing into it, or are you trying to like set up an automation process? This is where knowing more about Linux and just doing stuff from the command line can be really, really helpful. Because if you can SSH into the EC2, you have, and you understand how to configure the security policies, those sort of things. Machine learning. What specifically, Dirty Puddle? What specific, like what part of machine learning? What are you learning about it? Machine learning is this huge term. Route 53, EC2, GoDaddy, and Nginx. So are you using GoDaddy to host like your static files? You could, the GoDaddy part's interesting. So R53, EC2 are part of AWS, right? GoDaddy is like separate, only for the domain name. Okay, so Route 53 to talk to GoDaddy, say, hey, route this thing here, I think is what you're saying. Nginx probably on the EC2 instance would be my guess. So this would be a 0 offset. The board needs to get passed in here. Board. I'm going to try this cascading parameter. Allow null. And what we're going to do is in our board editor, I'm actually going to put this as a cascading value equals board. So we want to be able to add that to the board. Apparently ChatGPT is not the greatest at math, so I'm trying to train one. Gotcha. Yeah, ChatGPT doesn't actually do math. It just looks for text around it, I'm pretty sure. The Nginx start page. So some routing issue. So Nginx trying to get it to point to your application. You're having trouble with that. Yeah, I wish you the best of luck with it. All right, so we're going to create a new position figure. And we can just put it, I think, at, what are the order here? The element and then the position. New position 0, 0. And as you start dragging, it'll move it onto the board. So many tools out there, none useful. Yeah, it's one of those practical things. So the tutorials are giving you like a very specific case. So it's a matter of like understanding. This is where I think books about networking, books about deployment are a little bit better, because it's so much more when you're doing complex systems, or even just systems, like multiple systems connected together. The tutorial is going to show you like the happy path for one very specific thing, whereas being able to debug those issues that you might run into is you need to understand the system as a whole, right? So you're not seeing the page that's deployed. You're not seeing the page that's deployed. It's going to like the Nginx home page. So that in my mind would tell me, well, there's something wrong with my Nginx, my Nginx file, the configuration there. Why is it not pointing there? And looking at Nginx log, say, okay, something's coming in. What information am I getting, and where is it trying to route to? Because it would be different if you were getting like a 500 error or 400 error. That would say that, well, it's routing somewhere, but that thing it's connecting to is giving 400 instead of the start page. That said, that's just, it's hard to say exactly. An error occurred. Boom. All right, that was far easier than I thought it would be. All right, so we can drag these figures in to our board. That's pretty sweet. I would like to disable this like highlighting text throughout my editor. I think. So when I click and drag, it starts highlighting. It's because I'm using this, I'm not doing like real drags. That's pretty sweet though. Let's save, let's make sure we can load that. Let's refresh. I'm like 90% sure it's actually saving to the board. I can't believe I was able to get that working as quickly as I did. Boom. That is awesome. I thought that was going to take a lot more work. Okay. Am I okay? So the question is, am I okay with this amount of duplication? There's very little code duplication here. I need to, I believe cell size should at the very least be here. See, and this is where I don't know if the CSS actually reloaded. Without doing a full inspection on this. And now there's also this there's some extra padding here that I want to get rid of. It's on the board container, I believe. I want to get rid of that margin. Let's go into our board editor. Board. Get rid of that. Dithron, how you doing, friend? Dithron, how you doing, Dithron? Welcome back to the stream. Great to have you here. When you say bare bones, I'm not sure what you mean. Did you mean, am I building this from scratch? The answer is yes. So I'm building it as a Blazor application. I'm not using like a pre-built engine, if that's what you mean. Working on your game. How is it coming? You had a release or something, didn't you? I feel like that was last month. And I kind of forgot until this moment. I feel like you had a release of some sort. Is that true? Or you were showcasing it? I opened your Steam page. Gotcha. Send us a link. I got to click that wish list button. Send me the link so I can click the wish list. My editor menu. I don't like the way that one little bit looked there. Editor menu H1. All right, so what I want to do is editor menu H1. Need to get a better formatter for this margin 0. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Yeah, buddy. I'm going to click that wish list button right away. Folks, go check out Dithron's game, Supersized Rescue Squad. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Be sure to click that wish list. I'm going to click that right now in my other browser page. There we go. Be sure to add this to your wish list. Game looks awesome. We played it on stream a little bit ago. Dragon Spirit Games, nice work. Nice work. Lifting each other up. Distron, thank you so much for sharing this again with us. I can't wait to play the full version. I cannot wait to play the full version. Coming out later this year, Q4. Look at that. Q4, folks. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So we can actually add these in here. Very cool. I'm quite happy with that. Very happy with that. I didn't think that. So one thing, I don't know how to fix this. I need to... This is where if I think if it's click and dragging it, using like the built-in click and drag API, it wouldn't do the highlights. I think this is the same problem with sometimes I can get... See how sometimes I can get it attached to my cursor, and I don't understand that. I'm going to add in, I got to get back to GitHub here. Want to add in an issue. Click and drag highlights text. Drag should not highlight text. So there's something we got to do to disable click and drag highlighting text. I'm going to add that here. It's coming along. It's slow and steady. We're working on the board editor still. So we have our board. We can move things around. We get collision detection. We can add. We just added in this panel. This is what we're working on right now to add new figures. So this is like our prefab, our prefabs for our figures. One thing that's interesting. See that? I thought that would happen. We need to make it. Yeah. When I went to add this, it put it in position 0, 0 there, and I'll probably get an oh, actually, that's interesting. So there's a little bit of a something there that we shouldn't allow. Our figure placement tool. Yeah, it gives us It basically tells you whether or not you can put it in that spot, right? So I can't put it out here. I do want... I'm getting errors. I'm not actually getting errors there with that. We have a little bit of code duplication here. And so I would like to fix that. I think I think I need to have a very basic, let's do a commit. Let's do a commit with what we have so far. Not here. Because rendering the figure and rendering a position figure are slightly different. And then, yeah. So there's something here I have to figure out. This figure render I think needs to be renamed. Sure, very implement rudimentary figure panel. Okay, so we have a rudimentary figure panel here. There is duplication between our figure template and our figure renderer. And this figure renderer should probably be a positioned figure renderer. and it should have a figure inside of it rather than a figure itself, rather than this information. So I kind of want to take this thing and put it inside. The question I have is, can we? I think we can. We can do an inherit thing on our figure. This thing, this click and drag, this thing is like click and draggable. And so we want to, it scares me to do inheritance, right? I want the behavior of this to be different if it is a figure renderer. I need to, maybe I make this a delegate. So we have a parameter for check drag start that we can pass in that says, hey, this is how this, yeah, I think I'm going to do it that way. Make it a delegate that we can say, okay, this figure template can be dragged sometimes, and we'll pass it in. Our parent's going to decide how we do that, the objects that is containing us. Yeah, I think that's how I'm going to do it. Rather than this being a figure template, I think I just want this to be a figure. Let's see if this lets me do this. I think this is going to cause major issues. I don't think it does the refactor properly in the other components yet. This doesn't. So we have to be, oh, I can't call it a figure, because we have that already. That's why it's calling it figure template. And of course, this is going to get, there we go. Okay, I think I have an idea. For now, positioned, I need to do a refactor here. Okay. Saw, welcome back to the stream. Great to see you, my friend. Congratulations on your number 3. Let's get a hat on this head. Thank you so much for the hat. Oh yeah, get that new hat started. Got that new hat smell. Thank you for the hat. I hope you're having a beautiful day. Happy Wednesday, my friends. How did we do here? And I would like for the position figure to utilize the figure template. Okay, so I want it to use the figure template. And then there'll be some position information on that. So this thing will have a figure template inside. And it's going to be our figure dot element. Like that. We'll get this imported. So putting this in panel feels weird. Yeah, like name spacing is awkward for me. I don't know. I want to be careful. Figure templates. Maybe do a template. Template feels like the wrong word. But I'm going to end up with a similar thing. Maybe this really just becomes renderers. And this would be figure renderer. Figure render. Good luck with your stream, Saw. What are you working on? What are you going to be working on? That's always a question I got to know. Figure renderer. And this is going to come from... I'll get to that question in just a minute. Distron, thank you for asking. Let me see if I can finish this quick refactor here. Really, this renderer, I think, should be... I mean, it's part of the board. Figure renderer is not actually part of the board. I'll keep it here. Figure renderer. I don't necessarily think it's easier. I think it's more accessible. That's sort of my initial thought is accessible. All right, this is gonna, that still works. Is this actually, this is interesting here. Figure info, and then it has the figure. Okay, so it's actually in there. We're gonna do some more on this in just a moment. Let me address Distron's question. Chalks, welcome back to the stream, by the way. Hope you're having a beautiful day. So Distron asks, I remember learning basic programming when I was pretty young, and I feel like learning how to program has only become easier. Do you think kids need to be in high school to start learning to code? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think my personal feeling is there's no reason very young kids can't begin to learn the basics of programming and programming concepts. The main challenge with programming and computer science is, do you understand abstraction? So if a child is ready to understand abstraction, they're ready. And when you read early childhood development books about early childhood development, you will see that many students are ready for that around age 7, between ages 7 to 9. That's where the ability to have abstraction, be like, oh, well, I can take this concept and I can break it up. I can separate this into smaller things. 7 to 9 is really a good target age. Some are younger, right? So you can start younger with specific students. I really like young people really like tactile, touching things, physical contact to learn things. So I love these things. Do I have them in here? Are they my Joku? Yeah. Juku. And these are what I always recommend for very, very young people. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'll be right back. In my closet here. These. Juku is a fantastic way to introduce very young students to programming and computer science. I'm not a huge fan of block languages, but these are little robotics and programming have a little block language, and you can switch between the block language and I think it's Python or a Python-esque programming language, right? And you build little things with it. So this builds like a grid that can light up and change colors based on the input. So these are like different things you can attach together and program, and they're compatible with each other. So these would be like your different inputs. You can buy additional inputs to attach it. So there's a microphone, there is a joystick, and then I think this one's just 2 buttons that you press. But using those, you can end up programming this grid. So you connect them together and you program the grid. So I think the kids love the tactile part of it. Same with this one. Here's one where it's a little robot, smart car bot. One of my favorite ones here is this programmable ukulele. right? So I think it says it's a guitar, but it's really just a ukulele. Where when you strum the strings, it actually strums different things. So when you build it and then you program it, there have been studies that show going from block languages like Scratch to text-based programming is very challenging, very, very challenging. And so I personally tend to avoid things like Scratch, or if it's just a pure block language, because you start losing that abstraction. It becomes, oh, I can just keep dragging things around till they fit together. And so a lot of the learning gets lost on the abstraction. So there's a lot of really cool stuff. I think it's absolutely more accessible than it was 10 years ago or when I was learning to program. I think text-based programming, Grumpy Game Dev and I had an interesting conversation about it. I was saying like, oh, well, you have these issues with the block languages where you lose X, Y, and Z. And he said, well, that's assuming that text-based programming is what you want at the end of the day. And I don't know. I think he made a good argument saying like, well, yeah, you have trouble going from Scratch to text-based programming. That said, I don't think people have trouble going from text-based programming to Scratch. So like the inverse is not true. The study specifically that I'm referring to, there's two of them. I think it's a 2013 MIT study. It might have been before that. I'm not 100% sure. That showed high school students who had used Scratch, when they went to intro to programming courses, performed worse in those courses than students who had never been exposed to any programming language. All right. So you had three sets of students. You have those who had done Scratch, those who had done no programming, and then others, people who had other programming backgrounds. So those were the two groups that we wanted to really look at. And it showed that students who had like just done Scratch programming did worse in introductory university programming courses than those who had no experience before. And so there's an interesting thing there where you have this challenge of how do we teach? How do we go from this? So Windows made something called Windows Touch Develop, which was like block language that was actually C# underhood. You can toggle between the two. There's a bunch like that now. Blockly is a tool that lets you build block languages for any programming language, and there's quite a few now. I'm not up to date on what studies say now. That said, node-based programming, I think, is really good. I've had students have a lot of success going from node-based programming to writing event-based programming, text-based event-based programming, because you're thinking about that abstraction. You're not just dragging things, trying to get them to work. You're thinking, you're breaking down, you're going like, how does this code, how do the things flow through these nodes? So there's a lot of interesting research there. Anyway, to answer your question, I think it isn't easier. I think it is more accessible. Great question, by the way. Okay. Let me go ahead and remove that from our queue. I think so the node-based systems can be really cool. So like Unreal's Blueprints, Jolt and Unity, GameMaker. GameMaker is the one I'm most familiar with. The node-based programming is fantastic. It has great limitations, right? So there are certain things that can be expressed in text-based programming much simpler than drawing out giant things, but I do think it encourages you to keep things simple. Harder to find resources. Yeah, so I know a lot of schools provide clubs or courses. My school, for example, I teach 10 to 14. We have all kinds of programming courses. I'm not even the only programming teacher. We have two full-time, me and one other guy, full-time programming instructors. And then we have several part-time programming instructors. So I think we're going to be seeing that more and more and more as part of like a full-time program at schools. We'll get there. So way more accessible. Okay, so there's a thing here. My positioned, and really this almost becomes like a positioned renderer. And we could almost genericize it, right? We have to pass in something that knows how to be rendered. But I think I can take out... I'm wondering if we can take out... I think we can actually take out these things. Oh, this figure info is broken because we should be in a grid now. I think we can take out this and this and this. I'm curious. No. Notice these all got put up there. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Let's put the left and top back. Oh no, these aren't in a grid. These aren't in the grid. That's right. All right, we still need the left and top. Okay. So the click and drag now. Still won't do it there. We don't get the error information. Oh, we can still do a click and drag on it. The child. Yeah, the child needs this information so that the figure itself needs the information. The figure info. This is like the positioned info. These things should be on the figure, I believe. Okay, so we're going to switch these to figure. I think we want to... All right, so those aren't going to show up anymore. I want to move that information down. We're going to push this down. These things get put on our figure. Where's our figure renderer? All right, so we need this information. The always visible I don't know about anymore. I'm going to put that back here. All right, these are just slightly misordered. I'm going to put this back here. No, drag isn't necessarily always visible. This is interesting. Something interesting here is we need to know whether or not we're being dragged. All right, so we need these things in our figure. And we were calculating those this way. Okay. So it's like a parameter we pass in. Yeah, it's a little bit broken. I'm gonna take these. Is visible. All right, so I can't quite take that. So this needs to know. All right, do that. That compiles now. And our figure renderer, oh, it shouldn't compile. Always visible. So this should really be dragged, is dragged. Solomancy! How you doing, friend? We'll do false for now. Congratulations on your number 4. Great to see you. Great to see you. Ah, is valid. So we're invalid if we are... Let's just make this false for now. We got to figure that part out. So we're doing some refactoring, Salamancy. Great to see you. Hope you're having a good day. All right, hopefully that should, okay. Okay, so we are invalid if it's all a front end application, so there's no back end yet, but it is Blazor. We've implemented our own drag and drop chalk, so I didn't like the way the drag and drop API worked, so I was having trouble with it because I couldn't get it. When you do a drag and drop in the browser, it moves the thing onto the cursor, right? So it gets the thing onto the cursor. And so you can set an image to it. So we need to be able to set an image there. I don't have images for my figures, they're divs. And then also, I wanted to be able to have it snap to the grid as we're dragging it. So the drag and drop API, the built-in one, there wasn't a way to do that part of it. I also wanted to be able to, so notice if I click and I start here, it will snap to the bottom left corner now, or the middle corner, whichever tile I happen to be on, it'll snap to that tile now. So there were some issues with the default API that I didn't like. And so I implemented my own, which may be a, oh, there it is. It's just a little hacky. Yeah, so I've implemented my own drag and drop way I want to process it. And I don't know if that's going to bite me or not. I didn't like the way it was looking using the default one. It will. So let me ask you then. So because I'm not a web dev, right? So this like I haven't used I've done very little. This thing. All right, so I want. Yeah, maybe I need to do a little bit more. It's not ignoring my mouse. Hang on, this thing needs to ignore the mouse. So the problem, oh, now I don't get mouse events. This is annoying. I need to turn off the mouse events. Hang on. The API, I don't have access to some of those things though. This is interesting. We might need to ignore or have it be auto inherit. Maybe our parent does it for us. So I wish I had both versions. So I can't. I need to go. If I want to show you this working, I'm in the middle of a refactor, so I can't show you it working just yet. But yeah, there are weird hacky things, right? So an example is this figure text is going to get highlighted, right? And I don't want that. And I think if I was using the drag and drop interface, the API, that would go away. Maybe I need to spend some time learning more about the drag and drop interface. Sometimes I want to be able to select it, right? So I hate when applications don't let me select text. So do I have to like disable all selectable all text later? Yeah, so then I have to have a thing that, yeah, so implement my own drag and drop. This is where I'm saying like it's going to bite me, right? Can I go back to a previous version just to show you it working? And then I can describe my problem. I have my mini problem. Let's stash that, then a get stash pop, get status, get checkout, temp, get branch. Okay. So we should be able to demonstrate where I was having issues using the drag and drop API. Let's get this to reload real quick. Okay, make sure we're using the original CSS. So I could not get the original drag and drop API when I click this position. All right, so notice I'm in this cell. When I click and drag, I could not get it to drag and snap to the grid relative to that tile. That is something I could not get it to do. I spent quite a bit of time trying. So based on which tile I start from, it wouldn't detect. I couldn't get it to keep it snapped to these positions because it wants to add an icon onto the cursor. So that's one of the issues as well. The way it looks is not the way I want it to behave. I couldn't get it to interact like this. Right, and so I'm in Blazor, right? And I want to avoid using JavaScript interrupt as much as possible. So I know I could potentially have done it using like a pure JavaScript implementation. Yeah, so there's like a bunch of stuff surrounding the API that I'd have to modify anyway. So, it could be fun. You're right. So like I did start out that way. So there's a bunch of things. I also couldn't get it to interact with these things here the way I wanted it to. Yeah. So that's sort of where I decided, okay, well, let me see if I can just implement my own version of drag and drop inside of my tool. And I'm using like an adapter thing. But then I run into issues like this where I have that going on, right? So I want to be able to drag between these. This creates some components. There are some issues. If I bring it down here, I'm no longer dragging. It's just attached to my cursor. So there are things I have to, there's events that get lost, right? So probably not the best solution, but we're going to keep going with it for now. We're having fun. This is truly a learning exercise for me. That's the biggest thing I will say. It's a learning exercise for me. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's go back to my temp here. You could have each tile of the figure be a 1x1 tile that has its own drag drop behavior. Then you can ignore the JavaScript side probably. And then with images, offset background. Yeah, so I've thought through a bunch of different things, but I make it so that the tiles, so yeah. So we will, I have an idea for doing a little bit of refactoring to make it interact the way I want. So there's a bunch of thoughts I've had a bunch of thoughts. Let's go back to our temp here, which was like right in the middle. We'll merge this into our other 38. We're in the middle of a refactor here. I didn't mean to stop that, but I guess I did. It's more fun to run into the self-implemented pain of drag and drop. I don't know if fun's the right word. More educational. All right, so we're in the process of refactoring because I want these things and these things to use the same component. They weren't using the same component. I'm trying to get them to use the same component. All right, so let's go into, there was some code duplication I did to get it working, and now we're refactoring to eliminate that code duplication. Or that's what we're attempting to do. Is dragged. This one's tricky. This one is tricky. Now, Lazamat, thank you so much for that. Glad you like the hat. I like it too. I like it too. The invalid. Yeah, so it's almost like something interesting here. Nice, Dragon Spirit Games. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. Fresh Meat, welcome back to the stream. Great to see you. Glad to have you here. Congratulations on number 5. I'm laughing because our stream crashed. We ran into some issues there. Fresh Meat, thank you so much for the hat. Let's get a hat added to the stack. Let's get a hat added to the stack. Boom. Hat number 2. Thank you so much for the hat redeem. How do I know if this thing is being dragged? Zooted. You're not muted. You're zooted. Zooted. Thank you for the follow today. Zooted, thank you so much for the follow. Congratulations on number 6, Lazman. How was I telling this previously? It was like a parameter that was passed in. It knew it was being dragged. So it's a good chalk, so we can almost do that. The issue, so the issue is actually that it is not drag. It's actually removes the component. It's a different figure, I think, is when we start dragging it. I think what we need is in my board render, there's like a parameter that's being passed in. So let me show you my board renderer. This here, I need to say like, oh, by the way, you're being dragged. So I have it as always visible, but this should really be dragged, is dragging. So like this is being passed down. I just have like this dumb name for this thing here. So this is actually is dragging, or is dragged. Is dragging feels wrong. Dragon Spirit, thank you for the heads up. We'll have to take a look at that. And then we'll so I hate this idea of I'm propagating this down. Here. This is really a parameter. Is dragged. Is dragged. Can't believe there's no errors coming through here. Okay. How is this? How are there not compilation errors here? This is wild to me. Feels a little spaghetti to do that. Feels a little spaghetti. Okay. It does not have a property called isDragging. All right, show me. It's .NET. Am I actually doing it? Am I actually .NET building? Yes, I have no compilations. Is dragged. Is dragged. There it is. Oh, this is interesting. Do I do this? What did I do in the board renderer? Okay, so then I would do is dragged equals is dragged. Is dragging. Is dragged. Surprised that wasn't showing me a warning. All right, it's building here. There we go. What's going on? Okay, there it goes. Similar, we need to, in our figure renderer, we have no, so this is where it's interesting, it really is the position figure that is being dragged. So this is why I'm like slightly torn about these being propagated down this way. Because it really is just coming from the parent. I don't like this. Can I? Okay. It's not the figure that is invalid. I need to go back in time. How far back can I go? Can't go as far back as I want. Okay, here's this. Yeah. So this is the refactor I'm doing, or I'm attempting to redo. Is previously, so I'm trying to refactor. My program here, and it's requiring more thought than more brain power than I have to contribute to both streaming and coding at the same time. The positioned figure has a figure renderer inside of it, but it knows where to position it. So a figure is just something that looks like this. And then over here, you can position those figures onto the board. And so those are the things that are snapping. And previously, we only had the thing over here. And I wanted to be able to reuse the code on how to draw these things. But the ones over here weren't on a grid, so there's no position information for those. Those are just like templates. And so I said, oh, well, there's some refactor I have to do with how to get these to position themselves properly. And so instead I said, well, the thing that's getting positioned should have the figure inside, and then it does stuff about it in that regard. I don't have enough brain power to do this and stream at the same time, so I'm going to end my stream. Because I'm going to write a mess of things if I don't step away and come back to it. I'm about to write a big old mess, so I'm going to step away from this. I'm going to come back. So I'm going to end the stream here. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out. I know that we had a bunch of technical difficulties on the stream, but we're going to do a quick raid out here. Let's go raid. I think I'll be good. I need to take a break. I need to step away, get a breather. Let's go raid Andreas Sastev. Back at streaming, making a game engine. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. Remember to keep coding, keep growing, keep being the best you can be. We'll be back on Saturday for Mechanically Challenged. Moonez and I will be reviewing entries to Mechanically Challenged, so be there or be a square. Have a beautiful day, everybody. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.